Mr. Harish, good evening.
Good evening, ma'am. Good evening.
Good evening. Mr. Chandrasekhar, I think he's also joined in new. Good evening to you. I will just come back to you, Mr. Chandrasekhar. Alina, if you can just note, I think he's also joined in for the first time.
Yes, he has been introduced. We spotlighted him. Yeah, he's been introduced.
All right. So happy to have him. And Mr. Agarwal has also joined in. Mr. Agarwal, good evening. आप म्यूट पे हैं? Sagarika ji, good evening to you. Mr. Mukherjee, good evening. Good evening.
Good evening, madam.
Good evening, Prakash ji. I wished you. तब आपका शायद म्यूट पे था.
That's why I made a good evening to you. Yeah.
Right. Good evening. So,
Good evening.
Mr. Indrajit, good evening to you. Mr. Bora, good evening.
Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening,
Rekha ji,
everybody.
good evening. Good evening. Mr. KP, good evening. आप म्यूट पे हो, but I saw you trying to say good evening. Mrs. Mehta, good evening. Mr. Ved, good evening. Good to know that you're outside your house and not sitting on your sofa.
Yeah.
Anita ji, good evening. Anita ji, good evening. Asha ji,
Good
good
evening.
evening to you. Mahima ji, good evening. Good evening ji, good evening. And Dr. Jagmohan, good evening. Sandhya ji, good evening.
Good evening, ma'am.
Mr. Pavan Gupta, good evening. Rakesh ji, good evening. I think Vidya ji ne bhi, Mr. Vidya Kumar has also joined in today. We can just introduce him later.
No, I'm
And-
Miss Vidya Kumar.
Oh, sorry, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, hi.
So
Yeah.
good evening to you. And if you can come on video, we'll just, come to know you also. Convenient.
That's me.
Mr. Swatantra ji, good evening to you. Yes, Mr. Vidya. Yes, you were on video.
Ritu, good evening.
You told
Good
me to come
evening.
on, so I switched it on for a minute.
Yes, we can see you now.
Yeah, thank you.
So Vidya ji, if you could just, tell us about yourself, that everyone can know a little bit about you. You've just joined in, I guess.
Yeah, I just joined in for the first time and just more out of curiosity. And I'm here for a little while because I have to go off in the next half an hour for another meeting. But I was very curious and I retired for the past 6 years and I'm in my mid 60s. So I feel I'm quite young at heart.
Definitely. I think we believe this here at Emoha that we all are very young by heart. Age is just a number and we don't go by that, and we do lots of masti here on this platform.
Correct.
And
Correct.
we've made n number of friends, including us here. So very happy to have you, Vidya ji, and I hope that you continue joining us on a regular basis. So even if you have to go out, so let me just begin today's evening program, so that you can attend a part of it. And there are some more new people who've joined in. I will come back to you a little later. I will not like to keep the doctor waiting. So let me begin with today's evening session. So good evening to all of you once again, and a very warm welcome to Mo TV. Today is something, which I'm really looking forward to. So just to come to the topic, be someone's strength, be someone's inspiration, be someone's reason to never give up. Inspiration exists, but it must find you working for it. Try to be a rainbow in someone else's cloud. It's not necessary that you have to make special efforts to inspire others. Just doing your job honestly and with great passion and will, sometimes this becomes an inspiration for others. For example, a teacher inspires students, motivates them. You must have seen great motivational speakers talking about their gurus as an inspiration. The reason is very simple. That guru has shown him the correct path, which he or she considered as her duty. So you see, simply by doing what one should can bring a change, can motivate, and can inspire. And there are many such examples. When you are living the best version of yourself, you inspire others to live the best version of themselves. So today we have with us Dr. Prashant Hoskote, who will be sharing such inspiring stories with his topic, Once Upon a Time, Human Stories Celebrating Life. So Mr. Prashant Hoskote, he is the president and lead at LNS Custodian, Striking Ideas LLC, USA. Mr. Prashant has over 30 years of expertise in the quality and customer experience domains. He has a storied track record of engagement in advisory services in the areas of business excellence, process and innovation management, and has been supporting business leaders across hospitality, healthcare, retail, and real estate. Mr. Prashant has worked with the Taj Group of Hotels for 7 years. He was also Senior Director, Quality Service, Excellence and Innovation for the Max Group, wherein he integrated strategic quality customer experience, excellence, and the innovation agenda for Max Group companies and has served as a member on the National Board for Quality Promotion at the Quality Council of India. He has been Vice Chairman Quality Management Division, Global at ASQ USA, Chairperson Organizational Excellence, Technical Committee at ASQ's Quality Management Division, USA, member of National Executive Committee of the CRM Academy of Asia, and was recognized as the 50 most talented quality professionals and got the citation at the World Quality Congress in June 2014 and has also featured as one of the front runners in the executive focus column of Business India. In fact, there is much more, but I think I will just stop here with the main points. And Mr. Prashant, it's really an honor to have you here with us today, speaking to our elders. And, the topic that you've given, it is something which has been interesting me and I've been looking forward to this particular session. And I'm sure so are the elders. So over to you and a very warm welcome to Mo TV.
Thank you, Ritu, for that introduction. You have actually made me sound better than what I actually am, so thank you so much. And your introduction of the topic itself, I might have to say you were finished this. You finished the session, so I don't have to say anything more. You did it so well. So, but anyway, thanks so much. A heartfelt hello and a namaskar to all the elders who are connected at the moment. To those who are likely to also connect later on more television, YouTube channel, as well as others who are perhaps not yet elders, but thought it sounded interesting enough to be connecting today as well. So thank you to all of you for being here, heartfelt. Thank you. But before I begin though, let me start by showing you a sort of a short video as a prelude, which is a short opening to the theme Once Upon a Time. In a sense, it probably set the tone of the show. So here goes. I'm going to play the video right now. Give me just a minute and I will share that screen to you. Ritu, can you see the screen now?
Yes, we can.
There you go. Okay, so that's that. I will shut that screen, come back here. So can you see me again on the screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I'm therefore delighted to have this opportunity to engage with you, elders, as a as I continue. As a good friend mentioned, when he heard about this program that I was going to conduct, he said, how proud my parents would have been if they were around to watch this show. But anyway, be that as it may, when Emoha invited me to this show, I wondered, I must be honest, I wondered what possibly could I speak about? What could interest you that fits, if I may say so, my expertise and what I have done for my 30 years of lifetime? How can I interest you and engage you? And then at Striking Ideas, we reflected on the purpose that drives us and our organization. Striking Ideas is about celebrating the human spirit in bringing new perspectives to provide value for enterprises and companies and foster partnerships worldwide in creating value for everyone associated with us. And so we realized that in all the clutter of corporate jargon decorated behind the brand facade and process centricity and what have you, resides an indelible spirit of humanity. And so we thought of curating a few stories for your ears, and we hope it will resonate with you. And thus, Once Upon a Time was born, with a sustained hope to bring stories that celebrate the spirit of humanity. After all, in our childhood, we heard our grandparents tell us stories, didn't we? And engage us so happily. So here you go. So here's my turn to share some stories with all of you. For the elderly, we hope real life stories from work life could bring a smile and put a glow in your hearts. We hope, sincerely hope, that our conversations will be engaging and therefore once upon a time. I'm delighted that we have your ears to evoke thoughts and further our conversation in celebrating humanity and pick your uh, pearls of wisdom along the way, perhaps. I'm also hoping that after I finish my story session, you may have a few stories of your own with the pearls of wisdom that you have treasured over the years. Some defining moments that made you see life with a new perspective. And therefore, if there is time, of course, we welcome you to touch upon some pearls that you would be tempted to share with all of us. Just one caveat, though, just one little point that you must keep in mind that what we've followed in all stories you're about to hear, we've consciously not stated the brand names and the company names in any of our stories, except probably one or two. We have not stated actual names of people, places in our stories. Rightly so, we wish to keep the personalities and companies out of this conversation, as not it's not about tarnishing anyone with the intent of malice or prejudice, nor is it about promoting any one particular brand or any one particular company name. It's all about humanity and what it can offer. It's about pure joy of sharing, caring, and celebrating the best of humanity. After I finish my narrative, though, I will invite the audience for a conversation, and I'm sure you may have some valuable pearls, as I mentioned earlier. I'd urge you to follow these strict guidelines to refrain from the names of people, companies, and brands, if that's okay with you. It just keeps it more neutral. So let's begin the journey now. I'm going to pick a few stories from my personal experiences and a few from a book that captures human stories to amplify the loyalty factors. This first story was narrated by the author Raghu Kale in the book Loyalty and Sacrifice, Ushering New Horizons for Business Leaders in the Digital Age. It's a story about how a speeding ticket, think about it, a speeding ticket, a challan that the driver of a car got, leads us to recognize how loyal the driver was to the car that he was driving. It's a fascinating story that involves speeding. It involves a legal setting of a courtroom. It involves a speeding fine that the driver was required to pay. And then all this leads to demonstrating his loyalty to the car brand he was driving. This is fascinating and intriguing, is it not? How can a speeding ticket define loyalty? Think about that. Apparently, this story was in an auto magazine, incidentally, and was illustrated in this particular book. It's about a resolute gentleman who never drove anything but a particular car that was an icon of automotive luxury and emblematic of much that defined auto industry at that time. A rising middle class person living in suburbs for whom owning the car was a symbol of aspiration, achievement, and success of having arrived in life. While contesting a speeding ticket for his 1985 model, the driver of the car defended himself by arguing that his car could not physically attain the speed he was clocked at unless he was running, had a head start from the top of a mountain 3 states over or something. He validated his plea by saying, "My car is real slow. It can't go that fast." The car lagged behind its competitors in performance. The judge accepted his defense and threw out the ticket, thereby validating the defendant's plea that my car is real slow. It won't get to that speed. In later years, though, the gentleman went on to own a newer model of the same brand, which had severe torque steer deficiencies, and yet he never lamented not buying any other car because, as far as he was concerned, did not even exist. The other brands did not even exist. Even though his car lagged behind its competitors in performance, yet he remained loyal to that particular brand. Sometimes perception is indeed a hard reality, don't you think? I hope you like this story and you may have some of your own reflections, but please hold your thoughts for now. Make a note. We will get to your pearls of wisdom later in the show. Here's another one. Visiting a coffee shop has its own charm. I mean, there are some very beautiful coffee shops nowadays all over the country, all over the world. People visit these places for great coffee and lovely ambience. Equally, those who serve for a love for making others feel welcome. Over the years, in my experience, I've seen, especially in service industry, by the way, some people enjoy serving others. I have also seen misfits in this role that don't belong there. If one does not enjoy serving others, then that person should not be in a service role. This story is heartwarming to me. And let's see what's your take on this whole thing. It was clear to me on reading this story that without passion, a steadfast belief in the organization's vision and sharing the organizational values, great service just remains as an aspiration. We know that great customer service revives and requires a sort of a business to make sure all its customers feel welcome, all its employees feel engaged. It's not just the customers. Here's what happened apparently. A regular customer who had a hearing impairment used to give his order to his local coffee shop by typing it on his phone and showing it to the person who would come to take the order. The question is, can you do what can you do? Sort of, if that person is hearing impaired, why should anyone care? After all, that person is perfectly able to get around. So, what's the point? All these months, she used to make an effort to read his order on that tiny screen of his phone after he struggled to type the order, by the way. Aged person, right? Struggled to type the order. I presume sometimes she would have to type the question as well. But it was kind of working well. Everything was kind of okay. He was getting his order and so on. But then that's not what happened. One day, the steward, a girl, surprised this hearing impaired customer as he was stunned to see this girl started using sign language to ask for his order. And then she puzzled and delighted the customer by handing a note that read, "I've been learning sign language just so you can have the same experience as everyone else." I guess her fluency was restricted, of course, at that early stage of sign language learning because she wrote that note while continuing to speak over sign language as well. As they say, practice is needed, and therefore she would, I'm sure, have an expertise of it over time. She wasn't required to do this, mind you, yet she equipped herself with what she felt was necessary to make his experience better by investing her personal time and effort to learn the sign language. This is how passionate sort of one can define higher levels of role models. Think about that one. Why would she have had to do it? Just for one customer, but she went out of the way to do that. My next story is about travel. I'm sure when you've all traveled and you've had struggled to make sure that you hold on to your visa and passport and close to your chest and of course, your boarding card as well. These three critical documents you clutch your fists around in an airport, making sure that you don't lose them. And then some have a habit of writing postcards while visiting places. Maybe some of you do as well. It is a nice gesture to send a postcard to your loved ones that they can put on their refrigerator or their desk, maybe if it's a child or something. Imagine one of you is in Paris on a vacation. You clutch your passport and boarding card in one hand, and then in the other hand, you're holding the postcard that you're holding, hoping to sort of post at to your loved ones at some place you're trying to look for in near the boarding gate. If there is any place that you can post it. You suddenly see a red letterbox at the airport, and you walk to it briskly to drop the card. And then the unthinkable happens. You realize, damn, I dropped my passport in the mailbox instead of the postcard. This is what happened to a lady who was heading back to India after a vacation in Paris. She was sure now she will have to be stuck in Paris for a few weeks. What a way to extend your vacation, isn't it? Can you imagine the emotions, however, that she would have experienced? Imagine dropping your passport in a mailbox while traveling overseas. Where do you even begin to decide what to do next? And now, this is how the story goes. Luckily, an airline employee came to her rescue, handling a problem, therefore, as though it was his own. He went on out of his way to get her a special travel approval from the authorities, convinced the airline staff to accept her baggage and issue a boarding pass, and finally escorted her through the passport control and security, explaining her plight to the officers and encouraging them to let her board the flight. Then, to make sure that the passport would be returned to the airline after it was retrieved, he put a note on the mailbox for the postal worker. A few days later, the lady got her passport back by FedEx. In her words, this experience was a true customer service miracle made entirely possible by one dedicated employee. The employee could have easily asked her to come back after she recovered her passport. It wouldn't have been such a big bad thing for him to do that. Instead, he went out of his way to make and sort of made every effort to ensure that the passenger was able to board her flight. In this act of going beyond the call of duty, as they say, he made his company's brand proposition and position come alive for the passenger in a real and tangible way. Some may wonder if this is an incident from another time and another place in history, as it is beyond comprehension given the perils of security issues of the present day and age. But guess what? This wasn't very long back. This was reported in June 2013. Up close was the first problem to address, and that was to calm the increasing panic that the lady was experiencing. It certainly wasn't a cakewalk to address all that would have required to get the US Homeland Security Customs, the border control people, and all of those people to sort of make sure that the problem is solved. The power of passion, the word that Ritu used earlier, for doing what it takes to solve problems is at the heart of the story and is a true illustration of passion and perseverance that resides in humanity. Some demonstrate it as they have it in them, Some see it just as a transactional mindset, meaning, well, it's just one of those passengers, big deal. I get so many of them. But this person didn't do that. Here's another one, also from a similar industry, flying across destinations. And this is one about sending a teenager all alone on a flight. Actually reminds me of my son who did this several times when he was just this high, I think. The story is about the pharmacy and how they got involved many weeks after a teenager boards the flight. This made me wonder what happened, how and why the pharmacy got involved. Special handling is the term used in airlines. I'm sure all of you are aware of that. So that the minor is escorted and taken care of. The airline did all they had to do. But here's the weak link. The teenage passenger's cabin baggage was checked in by the flight crew due to a lack of overhead space, but the teenager failed to collect it before boarding his connecting flight. Many times it does happen. There is no space in the overhead bins. I'm sure all of you experience this. And so the airline requests passengers to put their baggage under the seat in front of you. And if the baggage is large, they ask it to be checked in during the because the lack of space in the overhead luggage space. The standard practice is to pick it up when you disembark. Somehow, this teenage kid forgot to pick his luggage after he disembarked at the first stop. He boarded the connecting flight and landed at the final destination. Now the fun begins. When he landed at his destination, obviously he could not find his bag on the baggage carousel. But the airlines also couldn't track it down as he didn't have a claim number since it wasn't a checked baggage in the system. He had given up all hopes of recovering his bag as it was left at a stopover destination and no one ever knew about it. So imagine his surprise when he got a call from his local pharmacy concerning his lost bag. Apparently, the lost and found baggage member at the connecting airport, where his bag was left, found his prescription in his bag, got his name and number, and called him. Since he didn't answer the call, he called his pharmacy and requested them to inform him that he had found his bag and could ship it to him once he gave the airline a call. Talk about dedication. The airline's employee didn't give up when she couldn't reach the passenger directly. Instead, she looked for other ways to reach him and at the end made sure he got his bag back. Where on earth can you find this? Only dedicated folks with a heart in the right place. I guess that's what makes a genuine human connection in the caring for strangers. This age we live in is about connecting across the world. Strangers, to me, are touched and affected by one's actions. That takes me to the next story. Communication devices these days have a technology hurdle, right? If one is not tech savvy, I know this could be hard for some of the elders. It was for my dad, for instance. He used to struggle with his mobile phone. Some are fluent in technology and some are not. That's okay. That's quite normal. This story is about learning to speed dial, therefore. Imagine a call center representative of a telecom company receives a query from an elderly customer asking for help programming his phone so that she could use the speed dial feature. The representatives immediately suggested looking up the phone's operational manual, which was available online. The lady, however, neither owned a computer nor had access to one. The call center representative was not one to give up, mind you. He made a copy of the manual, visited the customer's house to show her how to program her phone. He also spoke with her about her phone plan and suggested an alternative that better matched her needs. By the time he left her home, she had a new, less expensive phone plan, a phone manual, and was ready to speed dial, believe it or not. Needless to say, she was deeply thankful to the call center representative for taking the initiative and doing more than his duties entailed to help out a customer. Helping others while it's part of your job is a good thing, no doubt about it. That's part of your job. You should be doing that. But sometimes one has to do something that your job description does not require you to do. In fact, imagine what you are about to do is exactly your job requires you not to do. Think about that. You're not to do something, but you're doing it. This is a story that involves an airline pilot. So moving to the next one. We all know how paranoid airlines are about being punctual, how aggressively they compete with each other on securing the best on time departure record, like the Indigos of the world and so on. This is not Indigo. I'm not going to name the company. All employees are evaluated based on their ability to keep on the schedule. Most airlines would penalize an employee for holding up a flight. But this is a story about a passenger who was on his way from a business trip to his daughter's home to his 3-year-old grandson in a state of coma, who was being taken off life support that evening so his organs could be used to save other lives. Think about that. Let this sink in for a bit. If this passenger misses the flight, he'll never ever be able to see his grandson. They were pulling the plug on the grandchild. I can't even think. How to think about this? It's not easy. It's not easy at all. The passenger's wife had called the airline to arrange this last minute ticket and arrange for his flight. She had explained about the emergency and that her husband, the passenger, I mean, was heading to the airport. But guess what? The passenger was rushing to the airport. He was late. He was certain he will miss the flight, as unfortunately he was held up in the traffic. We know that, don't we? We suffer that all the time. And then of course got delayed further in the long lines at the airport. The passenger reached the boarding gate several minutes after the plane was scheduled to depart and was shocked to find the pilot waiting for him. As the passenger rushed into the aircraft and profusely expressed his gratitude, he heard the reply from the pilot: "They can't go anywhere without me, sir, and I wasn't going to go anywhere without you. Now relax, we'll get you there, and again, I'm so sorry for your loss." The pilot apparently was briefed on the passenger's story, and the pilot had decided not to take off without having the distressed man on board. He was sensitive to the man's emergency at the cost of losing his job, had willingly decided to delay the flight. Unfortunately, rather, for this pilot, the airline supported his decision and held his action as exemplary, in fact. His decision may have been personal and one could argue spur of the moment, but it was driven by the company's credo to connect people to what's important in their lives. A perfect alignment of values driving loyalty. We know that human beings are innately risk averse, and when assessing their options, we tend to err towards caution. This is particularly so in their workplace. But when there's a strong connection between the organizational values and personal values, it helps them to see their work as meaningful and encourages them to go beyond expectations and make a difference. Like in the case of this particular airline pilot who put his job on the line to help a distraught passenger. Think about that. This story truly stirred me when I first came across this and affirmed my faith in humanity despite the clutter and the chaos of impersonal, bureaucratic systems that can cloud human interaction. I've always wondered why some people enjoy serving others. They have a natural ability to connect with people and don't necessarily do that to get anything in return. They do it because they love doing it. This next story is truly inspiring. It goes something like this. About almost every night for over 10 years, a customer used to order a late dinner from his local pizza store. Like we have Pizza Hut and now Domino's and what have you. He had no signature order, no particular order. Sometimes he would call for a salad, sometimes a pie, sometimes the chicken wings. The only thing the staff knew for sure was that his name would show up on their online ordering site sometime between 11 o'clock and midnight, several times a week. So when his order suddenly stopped, the pizza store's manager checked and saw that it had been 11 days since he had ordered the last time, which was unlike him. She had known him since she was a delivery driver, by the way, and regularly made short trips to his home, which was just about close by, about 5, 6 minutes away. She knew he worked from home and rarely left his home. She also knew that he had suffered some health issues in the past, so she could not help thinking that something was wrong. I wonder if intuition has some place in human interactions and is relevant here. Let's see how sort of the story unfolds. She sent one of her delivery drivers to check in on the customer at his home. When no one answered the door, the delivery guy obviously got concerned and called the customer's phone, and it went straight to his voicemail. Seriously worried now, he informed his manager, who called the police for help. And when the officers arrived and broke open the door, they found the customer on the floor and in need of immediate medical attention. One day later, they might have been too late. The customer recovered in the hospital, and while he was profuse in his gratitude for the pizza store's manager's huge role in saving his life, for her, it was just part of the job. As she put it herself, and I'm going to read this, he's just an important customer that's part of our family here. He orders all the time, so we know him. I think we were just doing our job, checking in on someone we knew who orders a lot. We felt like we needed to do something. Indeed, this pizza order had toppings of love and devotion, don't you think? My experience tells me that the manager's role was to ensure the staff operations went smoothly, deliveries went on time, customers were happy, and concerns were addressed. But in this case, she really went beyond what was expected of her. She truly cared about her customers, and her attentiveness helped save a life. No process manuals and brand standards can prescribe this. After all, standards are a baseline, they're the basic. And making a departure from the baseline requires an appetite, an attitude, and courage. That's what this lady had, the young lady who was the store manager. Let's move to the next one. Here's a story from one of the organizations I was involved in a few years ago, very closely, and found it had deep down spirit of humanity. This is a story of a health insurance company's customer. His spouse was admitted to a hospital for treatment related to postdural puncture headache. And his son, unfortunately, an infant, was also hospitalized in the same hospital for treatment related to neonatal jaundice. This insurance company had a service called cashless facility. However, he was not able to avail this cashless facility as his policy was pending renewal. Unfortunately, he had not renewed it. This was due to some kind of a pending medical examination that was required for his son, which was in line with the company's underwriting guidelines and policy. That's something basic. The customer was quite irate with the process and wished to discontinue his policy and said, I don't want it. He even spoke to the CEO of the company to mention that the decision of not getting cashless facility was unfair. This case was assigned to an employee from the grievance redressal team for resolution. On receipt of the complaint from his customer, the employee immediately contacted the customer to understand the details of his case. So first, I wanted to understand what happened. The employee first checked the health and the well-being of the customer's family that was admitted, made sure that they are okay. After reviewing all the facts and next steps that the customer was hoping to take, the employee realized that it is not in the best interest of this customer to cancel his policy, especially with all the financial burden that he was going to go through in this current hospitalization. Despite the heavy burden of procedural compliances, the employee was able to advise the customer the need of this necessary medical verification and assured him that the company is completely committed to be an utmost fair and equitable decision while handling the case, and further explain to the customer the potential loss he may incur if he chooses to cancel the policy. The customer understood the reasoning behind the company's decisions and consented to share the additional information with them. And then on receipt of the document, the case was received by the medical advisory team, which sits again in the back office, and the health insurance coverage for his baby was accepted and the policy was renewed. The employee contacted the customer again and explained the cashless process to him in detail to fast track the whole process because he knew he was very, very concerned. Going beyond the call of duty on receipt of the cashless request, the employee immediately contacted the pre-authorization team to expedite the processing of the request. Post review with pre-authorization team, the cashless request for the customer's infant was approved. However, it was declined for his spouse. That was a bit of a bad news for him. On receipt of the denial, though, the employee didn't leave it there. He immediately contacted the pre authorization department to understand the details of the case. He did notice that the pre authorization was rightly declining it because they had some kind of claims policy. So it wasn't something that they were doing it deliberately. There was some problem. The employee called the customer and explained the rationale for declining the pre authorization request for his spouse. All this while the employee was empathetic, diligent, sincere, and supported the customer right through this anxious time. He ensured that the pre authorization requests were processed on priority and the customer was duly informed at every step. The bottom line, customer was very pleased with the way his case was handled and it restored his confidence and faith in the company. The professionalism, the empathy, the patience, the courtesy, the proactiveness, the hand holding the customer through the entire period, and a careful examination of the decision taken by the company with factual reasoning ensured that the customer was very happy at the end of all this chaos. Think about this one. I'm now going to move to a couple of my personal stories. Kind of funny, actually. So some of you may laugh at the end of it, but it also sort of demonstrates how customer centric and how values driven this company is. My wife, my little son, well, he was little at that time, now he's not anymore. Um, he's a teenager. And I were on a holiday in the United States a few years ago. We were at the Las Vegas airport terminal. Our coach to take us to the Grand Canyon was scheduled to arrive outside the terminal building about 2.5 hours later. Since my wife had a very bad migraine and my son was tired too, I asked them to sort of wait inside the terminal while I go and find out exactly where is the coach arriving. All my papers, the passport, the ticket, the return boarding car pass, and all other valid papers were in my wife's handbag. And I took the monorail went to the other side of the terminal, beyond the security gate and outside the terminal, the dumb person that I am. Little did I know that on my return into the terminal, I will need to go through all the formalities all over again, including security. However, I did not have any papers with me. And security, rightly so, did not let me get back into the terminal area where my wife and kid was seated. I tried explaining in all possible ways. Although I had a mobile phone with international roaming, my wife's phone was out of battery and my son was busy with his computer games, I guess. So, it's Murphy's Law. When things go wrong, they really go wrong. Went to my airline counter, explained the situation, but they did not. They said, you know what, um, not much can be done, but offered to call out the names of my wife and son on the AV system in the terminal. My wife by that time, unfortunately, had fallen asleep, but my son was busy conquering the world on the phone. He was a kid then and did not realize that it was his name being called out, but of course, in a very, very heavy American accent. He couldn't figure out it was his name. I went back to the airline counter, who took the initiative to come along with me to the airport ticketing counter. I explained the entire situation to this lady who I think was a supervisor, who listened to me very, very carefully, saw the genuinity about the whole case. But hang on. In the meantime, my wife had woken up and panicked that I wasn't around. It was well past the time for our coach. She started weeping there, wondering where the heck I was. My son kept hugging and consoling her to say, "It's okay, ma'am, mom. Uh, Dad will be fine. He knows how to look after himself and he'll be back. So, relax. Don't weep. It's fine." A co passenger saw them both and offered to help, but she did not have my US mobile number. But she did remember, though, that she had emailed my number to a friend of her in the US. But since her mobile was low on battery, she couldn't access her email. Went to the nearest computer terminal at the airport to access that email, got my number, and gave it to that gentleman who had offered to help, and he tried my number. All this while, the lady at the ticketing office at the other end of the terminal took it upon herself to issue a special duplicate ticket that allowed me to get a boarding pass without my passport. She escorted me to the security gate and talked to them into allowing me to cross through the security even without my passport and just the duplicate ticket and boarding pass. While I was going through security and my phone was in the X-ray machine belt, that gentleman was trying my mobile number and I could not pick up the call. The lady escorting me, however, heard the phone ring and after finishing the security formalities, asked me to call that number. When I did call, that gentleman who was sitting quite close to my wife and kid said, "It's the same number that's calling back." And I could finally speak to my wife to say, "Hey, you know what? I'm okay. And I'll explain what happened later." You bet she was mighty pleased. At least I think she was. But more importantly, hats off to that airline staff at the counter who saw the genuine situation, empathized with me, took me to the ticketing office, who heard the person who heard me out. The lady went well beyond her call of duty to issue me a ticket. She's not allowed to do that by process and by regulated regulations. A boarding pass, escorted me, almost fought with the security staff for me, and walked me through until I got back to my wife and kid. If this is not humanity, passion, and sense of ownership, empathy, empowerment, taking chances for a customer, what else is it? You need to have something special in here to make this happen. My last story is about a company which I used to work for. Ritu mentioned that name. I won't mention it again. And this was a customer who was, a completely loyal customer to that, the hospitality chain. And my role, of course, was to also talk to such loyal customers to find out why do they keep coming back to our hotels? Not just only complaints, but also to find out why do they keep coming back so that I can learn something from them and replicate those best practices to other places. So this customer from Singapore said, "Well, yeah, you bet. Wherever I go, I stay only with your hotel, wherever, in the country or even overseas." So I asked, what happened? He said, "Well, there's an interesting story to this. A few months ago, I think, I came here along with my wife, by which time I must say that we had put a process called the guest escort process, which meant everyone from the airport rep, as soon as you entered the terminal, he would not stand there with a board saying, this is Ritu. Uh, so Ritu can identify herself. No, they had a way of identifying the person because a loyal customer, we would have the pictures, and the pictures were in the back office of the front office. All staff would be showed the picture, and this is an important customer arriving today. So here's the airport rep with no board greeting the person. Welcome to Chennai, Mr. Churchman. Escorted the person to the car. The driver in the car, the chauffeur as they call it, opened the door and said the same thing. Welcome to Chennai, Mr. Churchman. When we went to the close, when we had a process in place wherein when we get close to the hotel gate, we would ring the phone by a certain speed dial number so that the duty manager on duty would know that we are nearing the hotel and she could come and stand at the porch. This customer, very important customer, need not even have to go to the reception. So she would come and stand there, and this is what happened. So again, the same thing happened. Welcome to the Taj Coromandel or whatever it was, Mr. and Mrs. Churchman, escorted straight to the room. And since he was very familiar with the room, she said, "Sir, since you're no familiar with the room and you know almost every corner of the room, but your wife seems to have come for the first time, can I take a minute to show her the features of the room and what's available where and so on?" And she was happy and she said, "Yeah, sure." Now, what happened after that was interesting. The young lady left the room after all this, and apparently Mrs. Churchman said to Mr. Churchman, "You must be a very big guy. Everyone seems to know you here." And he said, "You know what? You made my life. Now my wife thinks I'm the biggest guy in the world. Why would I ever go to any other hotel chain? Even if I book in some other hotel chain, my wife insists that I go back to this particular hotel chain." Now think about it. We had to sort of put that process in place, and every employee along the entire chain, from the airport rep to everyone else in the hotel, when we went to the restaurant or wherever else, knew the name of the person and greeted with such happiness that the customer was delighted. That's it from me, actually. My stories come to an end here, but I'd be happy to hear from any of you who would have had similar experiences. Ritu, do we have the time?
Yes, yes, of course we do.
Yes, Prashant
Okay.
ji. Yes, of
So,
course.
yes, sir. So, before I hand over to Ritu, I think it is Mr. Vijay Bhamri who's raised his hand. Mr.
Yes.
Bhamri, over to you.
In short, sir, I will give my introduction. Basically, I'm a social worker,
Okay.
but I went to USA 7-8 times. I got a job there.
Okay.
One incident really impressed me, the way you were telling about companies. You want me to name the company or not?
Maybe not, sir. If it's avoidable.
Okay. I'll just because I'll fail in my duty because that company really did a very good job.
Okay.
It was A&A, and we were coming from California to Delhi.
Mm-hmm.
So again I have to name the airport. It is
Okay.
Nakita Airport.
Okay.
Narita Airport.
Yeah.
And I have to catch the flight from Narita to Delhi. I forgot the way you were telling my very important documents in a jacket. Normally, you put it on this thing and you tend to forget also. I forgot, and when I reached the counter, he said, "Sir, what happened? You are looking very this thing." And then I said, "Look, I have got very important papers in my jacket, and your previous flight I forgot to bring." The gentleman said, "You need not worry. You go ahead and we will take care of everything." And we came back to Delhi and we reached home and we thought nothing will come up now. It is gone, it's gone. But you will be surprised. I received a call in 24 hours time saying, "You have already, we have already got your jacket and all important papers, and even my mobile was all in that jacket, is intact, And now tell us how should we contact you? I said, this is my address. And within 12 hours, the person came with a smile and saluted me and said, sorry for inconvenience caused to you. Maybe it was my mistake. And here is your jacket.
Wow, wow, wow. I mean, that's what I mean. You know, these kind of people and this kind of companies, they need something special to make this happen, isn't it? It's and I mentioned sometime earlier in one of the stories, if you don't have it intrinsically in you, even though the company tells you to do it, you don't fit that. If you're not the right fit for that kind of job, the person is wasting his or her time in that company, because the philosophy of the company, the values of the company, and your own personal values don't match. This is, to me, the biggest disconnect of why companies are not able to continuously sustain excellent service. That's my two bits, sir. But thank you for sharing that story. It's a wonderful one. Anyone else? Sir, ma'am, Ritu, you want to take over?
Anyone would like to share something?
Yes. I just want to talk to Mr. Prashant.
Ji.
Prashant ji, I had a small meeting with you in the year 1995.
Oh, wow, really? I'm so glad.
Mr.
The
Hari,
moment I heard your name,
sorry,
I was glad. It was regarding my daughter's job in your company.
Oh, is
She
that right?
already selected, but I was in London those days.
Uh-huh.
So when I came back, so I was referred by Mr. Malkani.
Okay.
Okay. Then I came to you. I met you in Taj Hotel only.
Okay.
And then she did her job in your hotel for about 10 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
After that, she's no more with Taj. But I had a great connection with Taj. Taj के साथ मेरा connection आज भी है, and I am a regular visitor to that place.
I can well imagine.
That small meeting and your, I mean, आज भी आपकी शक्ल almost बहुत मिलती जुलती है उस time से आज. I don't forget you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. That's it. That's
Really
it.
appreciate it. Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Harish. Kanal Sharma, you have something to share.
Yes. Prashant, we heard a lot foreign airlines and hotels, surely a foreign country.
Yeah.
Same level of loyalty. Just 1 minute.
Yeah, we can see you, sir. We can see you, sir.
Oh, I am not able to see myself. I don't know where
Now
to.
you are there. Kanal Sharma, you are there.
Okay. So I'll make it short.
Uh-huh.
We have same level of customer response pattern by Indian companies also, and here in India. So
yeah, sure.
same level of honesty and sincerity here also.
Mm-hmm.
1984, I was a young captain posted in a place called Ganganagar. I say many of us may not have heard the name. They must be thinking Ganga Nadi wahan se guzarti hai. His name is Shri Ganganagar, named after Ganga Singh, Maharaja of Bikaner. Okay. Anyway, so very small town. So I was posted as a young captain, newly married with a kid. So there some marriage came up in the town only, where I was also invited. So मैं एक दुकान पे गया, वहाँ से उनको बोला मैंने, कोई सबसे महंगा कपड़ा दिखाओ. So he showed me a shirt piece. So a particular brand, Indian brand, जो कानपुर based है, name you have told me not to tell. तो उनकी मैंने सबसे महंगे वाली शर्ट खरीदी और बनवाई, and वो शादी में पहनी, and I was looking smart, and बड़ी खुशी हुई. बस first wash में ही उसकी ऐसा pattern बना, it started having wrinkles and all that. So I went to उसी समय तो नहीं, तो one of the Kent से markets are always very far. So I went there and told them कि भाई साहब ये तो गलत बात है. तो मैंने आपसे पैसे भी कम करने को नहीं कहा, and you gave me a shirt, उसके तो wrinkles हो गए. कैप्टन साहब कोई गल नहीं, चलो हम कुछ करेंगे. वो इंस्पेक्टर आता है जी कंपनी का, कभी कभी उसको हम बताएंगे. And I jolly forgot about it. It was expensive. So one day again I must have gone past his shop and was in a different shop. Then some chap came as, Captain साहब दुकान पे बुलाया तुहानू. I said, what? कंपनी का आ रखा है मैनेजर. उन्होंने आया, हाँ जी कैप्टन साहब कोई एक शर्ट आप चुन लो इसमें से. तो I selected another shirt and दी, कहता सर ये आपकी हुई. And मैं कहा what about the shirt जो मैंने सिलवा लिया ऑलरेडी. मैं कहता सर वो भी आपकी हुई. तो they returned it.
Yeah. Wow.
Suppose the two small lessons I want to say, wherever you feel you are being cheated, don't hold back. And in a restaurant, if the food is not well made, you tell them, "Paisa, yaar ye le jao, ye acha nahi bana hua hai." Somebody will come to you and ask, "Sab sir kya ho gaya?" And they replace the dish. And simply, this fellow replaced my shirt. I'm wearing that brand only. In fact, quite a joke in my house. कि पापा ने तो वही लेना है. तो इनफैक्ट उनका भी शोरूम भी मेरे घर के पास खुल गया. तो I go and buy from there only. Such loyalty I'm having. So very, it happens in India also.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, if you ask me, Sharmaji, while some of my stories might have touched the United States, I might also add that intrinsically Asians, and of course it also very much includes India, but broadly speaking, Asians are far more service driven. They are far more prone to good service. They are very hospitable people. I know I don't have the time now, but I wish I could keep talking about some stories where when I had the honor and the liberty to go to our neighboring country, which we keep talking ill about, Pakistan, for a consulting assignment, and the hospitality that you could see in that country is mind-boggling. You start wondering, why do we even have these fights all the time? It's a fabulous country with lovely people, and it's some stupid people who are creating all this nonsense for us. But you're right. I mean, it's very much in India, and it's growing dramatically. Competition is making companies, pushing them up the ladder, if you wish, and against the wall, and it's forcing them to change anyway. Plus, they are like that intrinsically. So yes, sir, absolutely, I agree with you. Anyone else?
Praveen ji?
Yeah, I want to share one of my experiences of going abroad. In 1990, I went to Russia. My husband was there, and for the last 1 week, he was telling, "I'm sending you tickets, me and for my child. So you come. I said, when you will send, only then I will do the needful. और सवेरे मेरे को 12 बजे उनका फोन आता है from Moscow कि I have already sent the tickets. Go and pick up from Aeroflot office from Connaught Place. So I rushed there. I was there by 12:30 or 1:45, and it was a lunchtime at that time. So they won't give me anything. I had to wait for till 3 o'clock there. So they said कि हमें अभी तक intimation नहीं आया आपके वहाँ से. Though then we cannot issue the tickets. So I was in a fix. क्या करें क्या नहीं करें, and I was calling him कि आपने भेजा. No, he said I have got the confirmation from Moscow कि उन्होंने भेज दिया यहाँ से. And I was there till 4:30. Nothing was working out. I said and उसी दिन रात के लिए flight थी. And one of our friends were also going. So पहली बारी मैंने जाना था, तो I was scared कि मैंने कभी गया नहीं. तो he said, "Don't worry, I am there." तो मैंने उनको request किया. See, one of my friends is also booked in. Finally, 4:30. He said, "Yes, we have got the intimation for 2 tickets, but we don't have seats for today. You can go tomorrow." I said, "No, my husband is waiting there. I cannot because somebody is going with me. He is booked on this seat." So with so much of persuasion and all, he said, "Okay, ma'am, I will try to help you." And I would say around 5:30 or so, he came and he said, "Finally, I could fight with people and get you 2 seats for Moscow." And from there, I had to go to the Janpat to buy some gifts because I was going there for people. So by the time I landed back home, it was 7 o'clock and 9:30 was my flight.
Wow.
And imagine I had done no packings, nothing. I just came, I took one of the boxes, jo mere haath mein aaya, maine dala, and I told my son, he was in class 9th. So I said, quite big, कि तू अपने कपड़े तो डाल ले सारे, but don't forget to put your undergarments because normally children, they don't do. So we just packed our bag, and it was around 8:45 when we left the home for the airport from Karol Bagh. और रास्ते में jam mil gaya thoda sa, and then again we delayed. And by the time I landed up there was 9:20 and 9:30 was the flight. Mind you. And when I went inside, the person said, "Madam, we were about to close our for bookings. Or aap abhi aa rahe ho." I said, "What do? I got the ticket so late." But anyway, he could see that मैं बड़ी परेशान हूँ and all. He said, "Don't worry, ma'am. We have holded because once we book someone, we cannot fly without the passenger. So don't worry." I said, "No, I have to change my money for rubles also." He said, "Okay, you come with me." He just went running with me. And मेरा passport दिया उसने मेरे को rubles करके दिए वापस. Then इतनी लंबी लाइन थी वहां पे फॉर सिक्योरिटी चेक. मैं अगर उसमें लगी रहती लाइन में तो रात को 1:30 बजे शायद मेरा टाइम आता. He said, "Don't worry." उसने मेरा हाथ पकड़ा like a child, you're dragging me and my son inside. He took us there. He said, "Don't worry, the plane is waiting for these 2 passengers. Please let her go inside." And one of the friends who was to go with me, he was so worried कि Mrs. Kumar कहाँ रह गए. The moment he saw me, he said, "Finally, you are here." Said, "You don't know how I have come." So this was, he really, if he would have not helped me, I would have not boarded the plane that day. So there are people who really, that was an experience. After that, I learned that I have to be at least 2 hours before the plane takes off. So this was a good experience for me in the life.
Great story. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Thank you, Praveenji. Mr. Gupta, you have raised your hand. You are on mute. Mr. Gupta, आपको अपने आप को unmute करना पड़ेगा.
I've sent the request to him. Mr. Gupta, please accept the request.
Hi, Daddy. How
Okay. Yeah. Okay. This is also one of my incidents regarding the flights part of it. Hello? Am I audible?
Yeah. We can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yes, sir. This is also regarding one of the flight incidents. I was actually to go to Ghana, Accra. And the flight was from Bombay, you see. I was traveling from Delhi to Bombay. And Bombay flight for Air India flight was delayed at that time by about 1.5 to 2 hours. And my connecting flight was Air France from Bombay to Paris, Charles de Gaulle. And incidentally, what happened, because the local flight was delayed, so I told them either to take down my baggage or otherwise you have to inform the Air France people at Bombay that I have a connecting flight, otherwise I won't be able to take the flight 2 hours in advance. So it is really grateful when this message was given to the pilot of the Air India flight. I got a message while I was already in the flight. They said, "No, don't worry. We will communicate the message to Air France people in Bombay and your flight, everything will be organized and we'll make all arrangements for you." Surprisingly, it was really wonderful. There was a chauffeur available to me at the Bombay airport. That fellow came along with me, came to the belt, took out my baggage, which was locally booked, and then took me from the baggage on the car and taken straightway to the international airport of Bombay. And then ultimately I made all my security arrangements, everything promptly. And see, I was there on the flight within 15 minutes advance of the closing of the door.
Wow.
So what I mean to say, even on the flight while I was there, I got a message from the pilot of the Air India flight that we have already communicated to them. You don't worry, Mr. Gupta, everything is arranged for you and the pilot and the car will be available for the airport. They will take you to the international airport and from there you will be able to take up the flight for Air France.
Wow.
So this is what is actually really appreciable. You see that these guys sometimes are very, very cooperative and they give you all kinds of assistance provided you are already informed them in advance.
Yeah.
Question is, people are scared of informing them and they keep on struggling within themselves. यार अब मैं क्या करूँगा, मेरी तो flight miss हो जाएगी, मेरा तो baggage नहीं निकलेगा, I'm really perplexed, I'm really disturbed. But the point is, you have to keep those people informed of your problem.
Yeah.
If you inform the problem will be resolved by those people. They are quite cooperative.
That is so
But
true.
we people as Indians, quite hesitant in coming out with our problems. That's a
Very good point, sir. Very good point. Yeah.
yes. We are people are very scared of coming out with our problems. Same is with the bankers also.
Yeah.
Bankers also help you. Airlines also help you. Restaurants also help you, as you said. This is quite appreciable. You see, if you are being able to tell them the problems.
Yeah.
If we swallow the problems ourselves, then nothing is going to come to your rescue.
Hello.
Yes, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thanks. A lovely story.
You know, Mr. Prashant, the best part is when you are, like my experience, I was late, but when I entered through the tunnel to the aircraft, all the passengers are looking at you. Oh, who is this person who is delayed our flight? That is the embarrassing situation.
Yeah, it's a very embarrassing situation. I can imagine.
We'll take the last two stories. I think Mr. Satish wanted to say something. Mr. Satish, आप म्यूट पे हैं? हाँ जी, Mr. Bora, tell Mr. अच्छा नहीं, Mr. Satish has unmuted. Just give me a second. Mr. Satish, आप कुछ बोलना चाह रहे हैं?
Back on mute again.
चलिए, Mr. Bora.
So now I'm coming.
Hello.
I'm coming down from international
Hello.
level stories. Okay.
Mr. Satish, I'll just come back to you. Just give me a second, please. Anji, Mr. Bora.
I'm coming down from air to the Indian Railway. I'm a banker, though I have helped a lot of people out of the way, and I have innumerable stories. At present, I don't remember, but I'll be talking about Indian Railway with my personal experience. 1974 में मैं कश्मीर गया हनीमून पे।
वाह, सुभान अल्लाह।
तो जब हम गए तो हमने थोड़ा सा 1000 रुपये कहीं अलग से रख दिए थे। आई डोंट नो चलते वक्त वो क्यों नहीं उसमें हमारे बैगेज में गए, कैसे रह गए, कि इमरजेंसी के लिए। हमने वहाँ खूब जो जैसे मर्जी खर्च किया। रिटर्न में जब हम श्रीनगर से जम्मू आए, जम्मू से ट्रेन लेनी होती थी, तो हमने देखा हमारी जेब में सिर्फ 20 रुपये बचे। टिकट रिजर्वेशन बुक नहीं था। 74 की बात बता रहे आपको।
ओके।
हम दोनों सोच रहे क्या किया जाए, तो वहाँ एक कुली से पूछा। हमने कहा यार यहाँ इसमें टीटी जो है वो कहाँ पर है, उसमें मिलना चाहता हूँ। वो कुली मेरे को उसके यहाँ ले गया। टीटी का क्वार्टर था उसके रेलवे के जम्मू में स्टेशन के पीछे। मैंने उसको जाके सारी बात बताई कि ना तो टिकट है और ना पैसे हैं, और दिस इज माय प्रॉब्लम। सरदार थे वर्मा जी, बहुत बढ़िया आदमी। उन्होंने मेरी बात ध्यान से सुनी। हालांकि जो घर से बाहर आए थे वो कच्चे बनियान में आए थे बाहर। वो ड्रेस में नहीं थे। तो बात करी उनसे। उसके बाद कहने लगे अच्छा ऐसा करो कि आप वो काउंटर पे जाके और टिकट ले लो। टिकट के पैसे उन्होंने मुझे 73 रुपीज़ की फर्स्ट क्लास की टिकट आती थी। तो मैंने जाके टिकट ले ली। जो मेरे पास 20 रुपए थे उसमें से 10 रुपए मैंने कुली को दे दिए। उन्होंने मेरे को बताया जब मैं वहाँ पर आऊँगा स्टेशन पे तो मैं बोलूँगा हेलो बोरा जी कहाँ है। दूसरे लोग गलत ट्रीट करेंगे, कहीं इसने रिश्वत तो नहीं ली है, ये इतनी हेल्प कर रहा है। आप बोलना, मैं बोलूँगा हेलो बोरा जी क्या हाल है। आपने कहना अरे वर्मा जी आप यहाँ, विल मीट लाइक फ्रेंड।
ओके।
तो हम स्टेशन में बैठ गए, बस टेंशन में थे दोनों। जम्मू से दिल्ली आना था। थोड़ी देर के बाद वो अपने कुछ 4-5 उनका स्टाफ था उसके साथ आ रहे थे, इसीलिए उन्होंने बोला था एक्टिंग करनी है। तो वो मैं बोलूँ उससे पहले वही बोल गए अरे बोरा जी आप यहाँ कैसे। मैंने कहा ओह वर्मा जी आप यहीं हैं। तो उसने अपने असिस्टेंट को बोला इनका सामान ये सब उठा के और फला कुप्पे में रख आओ, ट्रेन के फर्स्ट क्लास के कुप्पे में। वो रख गया और तुम वहीं खड़े रहना, जिसका वो कुप्पा अगर रिजर्वेशन का है अगर वो आ जाते हैं तो उसको दूसरा नंबर दे दिया, फिर इनका सामान उसमें रख देना।
अच्छा।
तो हम वहाँ बैठे रहे, बाई चांस उसमें कोई नहीं आया, पर वो दरबान की तरह जो उनका चपरासी था वो खड़ा रहा।
अच्छा।
उसके बाद ट्रेन चलने लगी। थोड़ी देर बाद कुछ मैगजीन भी लाके डाल दी उन्होंने।
74 की बात बता रहा हूँ। मैगजीन भी लाके डाल दिए कि भाई इनके फ्रेंड है, वर्मा जी के फ्रेंड है, सब लोग सेवा कर रहे हैं काफी। उसके बाद बहुत कंफर्टेबली जब पानीपत पहुंच गए तब कहने लगे बोरा जी कोई दिक्कत तो नहीं हुई? मैं कहा नहीं। तो मैंने कहा बताओ मैं क्या सेवा करूं, मेरे पास तो 10 रुपए बचे। मैं क्या, उस वक्त ना मोबाइल होता था, ना बैंक की इंटरनेट सर्विस होती थी, कहीं से हम पैसे भी नहीं ड्रा, आई एम ए बैंकर, बट कहीं से पैसे भी नहीं ड्रा कर सकते थे हम।
Sure, even ATMs were not there that time. So many
कोई
ATMs.
एटीएम तो सुन नहीं सकते, मोबाइल भी नहीं थे उस टाइम 74 में कि कहीं कांटेक्ट करें तो।
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल।
ठीक है जी। तो उसके बाद फिर मैंने उनसे पूछा बताइए मैं आपको कैसे, कहाँ मिलेंगे, कब, कैसे, मतलब। तो उसने मेरे को ये बोला, कहता आप यू गो एंड माई, एजेड थे वो, माई ब्लेसिंग्स आर विद यू बोथ, आप जाइए, ये जितना मैंने दिया ना आपको इससे डबल में कमा लेता हूँ।
अच्छा, वाह वाह।
और उन्होंने कोई एड्रेस वेड्रेस कुछ नहीं दिया, आज तक मुझे याद है। मैं एक दो बार स्टेशन पे गया, मैंने ट्राई किया उसी टाइम पे शायद वो वर्मा जी मिल जाए, तो मिले नहीं मुझे। बट ऐसे ऐसे लोग भी होते हैं, इंडिया में भी ऐसी बात नहीं, पुरानी बात कर रहा हूँ मैं, जिस वक्त करप्ट लोग होते थे उनमें ऐसे लोग भी होते थे इंसान।
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Lovely story. Thank you.
Beautiful. I think the last story we'll take is from Mr. Satish. Satish ji, are you there?
If not, I think Swarna.
He is there, but his video is off. Oh. And I think he's on mute also.
अरे तुझे स्वर्णा जी हाथ खड़ा कर रही हैं।
Mrs. Bhattacharya.
Yeah.
Mr. Satish has come back. And Mr. Satish, would you like to say something? सतीश जी, हम आपको सुन सकते हैं, अगर आप कुछ कहना चाहते हैं तो। चलिए, मिसेस भट्टाचार्य।
Okay, actually, this is not this is a very, very personal incident. I heard it from my mother. My father was an insurance man, and one of his very close friend died unexpectedly. And his friend's wife was very young with 2 children. So my father was very moved, and he was so feeling bad how to help them. And then my father asked his wife that, have you paid the insurance, life insurance? So she said no. Then she showed all the papers to my father, and then it was not paid, it's pending. My father suggested first you pay the premium, then we will declare his death. So he sent a premium, and as my father was in a very high post and he personally dealt with that, then they declared, called a doctor and made the declaration of his death. So then his wife got very good amount, and then I heard this from my mother, and then I heard many stories from my mother. And then many friends actually came after they heard that my father has expired, and they kept on telling so many stories. So many things has happened which my mother also didn't know. So he used to do hidingly some help to others, which he never used to tell my mother. And I feel nowadays sometimes something happens very miracle, which I never expect. And I think it is his karma which I am blessed with. So I have this, that he was a very, very known person, and he was very popular in Delhi. He was among Bengalis also. He used to was a president of a school. And when I passed from there, then he told me that you have passed, but can you help teaching them free, so that it is indirectly you will donate something to that school. So I used to teach there, but I never accept any salary or anything, and that way my father used to feel good. And then he Another thing he did, my son, my brother, younger brother was studying in a very good school in Frank Anthony, Delhi Public. Then my father said, no, I will, he admitted him in that school. It was just not that good in standard, but he said, I feel proud that I'm giving, indirectly I'm helping that school. So this sort of thing. And then of course that brother was learning Bengali also in that school. That was a Bengali school, and he was a president of the many other association like that, being the cultural, that Kalibari and all sorts of their clubs and all. So he used to help indirectly or directly.
Right, right.
This I heard from my mother.
Sure, nice one, very nice one. Well, I think we're pretty much close. Is that closing time, Ritu, you think?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So before
So
we
if you
take
want
over,
to say something, most welcome to.
well, I just wanted to just say thank you to all of you for a patient hearing, listening. It was almost an hour and a half. So I really hope you benefited out of this exchange of stories. And one of the things that I would leave a thought with you is what I did mention earlier too, but I'm going to say it again, that this kind of high quality of service and so on doesn't come unless you have something extra. There has to be something that to do with humanity, something to do with something out here called our heart. It is not about process. It is not about manuals. None of this will be taught to you in any public school or anywhere else. It has to be something that your heart and mind has to communicate very quickly and make it happen. So I leave you with that thought. Thank you very much again. Namaskar. And I'm looking forward to somewhere, someplace, maybe meeting all of you again. Ritu, over to you. Thank you so much.
Beautiful, beautiful session. Thank you so much, Prashant. It was a wonderful session. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
It was a wonderful, wonderful session and beautiful stories, which kind of just reinstated all the faith that we have in humanity. Somewhere we all lose hope at some time because things are not going well and all. But this one act of kindness that we get from someone, it revives all the hope and everything, that faith that we have in humanity. And I always believe in what you give out, it just goes round and it comes back to you. So the more we help out people, all that kindness comes back to us in some form or the other. So, and I think every story that you talked about, it really, really kind of, when he was in life support, it really brought tears to my eyes. That in such difficult times when you're losing hope, there's one person who did everything to help that person. Even the rest of the stories that you talked about, where people just went out of the way to help out, is really, really very, very motivating and inspiring. So I am sure all of us have done our bit in, helping out people in whatever small little manner we could have. And there are many people who've helped us also. It's just that we need to remember all these things. And Leena, am I audible?
Yes, of course. Yes, of course, Ritu, you're audible. Yes.
Sorry, I just froze. So I just thought I've lost connectivity.
No, that's
so, Prashantji, wonderful, wonderful things that you've spoken about. And I think where these 1.5 hours went, I don't think any one of us really realized. We were so engrossed in what you were telling us and the other stories that we heard from everyone. So thank you so much for coming here and sharing all these beautiful things with us. And we hope that we have you here again with more stories, more things which, make us feel very good from inside. So thank you so much. And thank you so much for taking so much of time. And
my pleasure. It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us here on Mo TV with Mr. Prashant. And I'm sure, everybody just loved the stories. I was watching everyone.
Amazing. Very nice stories.
Yes.
Very interesting and very nice.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Nicely explained also.
Very.
Thank you, Prashantji. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Honored to hear all that. Thank you.
No.
Knack
It was
of telling
really good.
stories.
Good session. Very good session.
Thank you.
So, right.
I'll take your leave then.
Absolutely. So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
see you all tomorrow morning for a physiotherapy session, and then a dietitian session, and evening, of course, 4:30, our Valentine's special. So see you then. Get all your love stories ready for tomorrow. And please remember to dress up in red for the ladies and for black for the gentlemen. So take out your clothes and get ready.
And who doesn't wear red then?
Penalty.
If you don't wear red then?
उनको दो stories सुनानी पड़ेंगी फिर.
See you then. Bye-bye, everyone.
Okay.